All right, we got Mr. Bob Ballard, David Paul Lord, Peter Angelos, Alexander UNSETH. There he is, our featured guest today. We have Crystal Desprier and see if I said that wrong. No, I said that wrong. Crystal Desprez. Yes. And then Gary Manuel. There's Dr. David Fogel, Larry Piazza. There's Kip Denicio. There's JP, Lawrence Lynn. And as more people are coming aboard here, I welcome you to this 12th of April, 2025. It feels like summer over here in Southern California already. Pretty hot. I don't know how it is where you are, but I'm looking forward to the summer months. There he is. I see Alexander on screen there. Hello, Alex. There's Jay Maxwell, Steve Dockendorf. Okay. So as more are coming aboard, we have some very interesting things for today's mastermind. And one of them is, let's see if Scott Carter's here yet. He was just at the last meeting. He's getting prepared for a special presentation today, which is a little bit off the beaten path. It's something a little different today, and I think that you'll enjoy it. And it's something also very important to how we approach life and how we approach the music industry and the entertainment industry itself, just as individuals, as people. And it covers the subject of character counts. There he is. So let's see if he's coming on screen there. Scott. Hello, Scott.
Betty?
Yeah, hi. Is Julian available, Scott?
I believe so. Let me check real quick.
Okay, good. So there's a special guest that's unannounced that his name is Julian. You'll learn who that is in a moment. And it's someone from the Christopher Scott Carter household. And I don't know if any of you have met him before, but you're about to meet him. And after that, we will definitely have a presentation by Mr. Alexander UNSETH. So for those of you who received the email, the newsletter today, I looked up Alexander. I even used artificial intelligence, and I scoured my brain. How do I, in a statement, kind of describe you, right? With all the things that you've accomplished already at 22 years old. And the word that popped out was champion composer. And I think it's befitting for everything that you've accomplished. So why don't we do this? We'll do a little intro to you, and then we'll kind of shoot for a commercial from Scott and Julian, and then we'll start your presentation. So Alexander, give us a bit of a bio.
Sure. Um, so first of all, I just want to thank you, Gary, for having me on. There's a lot of familiar faces. I've been here a couple of times, and it's been an absolute privilege to be able to be in the presence of such forces in the musical industry. So my name is Alexander Onseth. I'm a 22-year-old composer. I'm currently at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, studying business and economics, and I'm about to graduate from there next month. And then from there, I will be moving up to Wisconsin to work for Epic Systems, which is sort of the largest electronic health record provider in the United States and one of the largest in the world. So I'll be doing some business up there. I'm a purely self-taught composer, so the journey has been a wild one, but it's been absolutely incredible. I stumbled upon the Symphonina Foundation in 2023, and on a whim, I submitted a piece to there. And to my surprise, it won first place. And so from there, I've had an amazing journey with the Symphonina Foundation, including with Gary, with David Fogel, Daniel Fisher, and all of the others. And it's just been such an incredible journey. I truly owe a lot of my success to the Symphonina Foundation in being able to put a young composer like myself who's trying to learn the ropes in the spotlight like this.
Amazing. And I think, none of this would be happening right now. And I think it deserves a big round of applause. And where's our cowbell man? Is he ready? He's ready. All right. None of this would be happening at all if it were not for Dr. David Fogel. So let's give him 3 cowbells and a big round of applause. Thank you, David. So we have quite a presentation. And again, for those of you that have seen any presentations by Alex, one of the things that he has done on the spot for me, I don't know if he's technically able to do it today, but I know if he can, he will, because he has no fear, this young man, at actually composing live on the spot with people watching. So I don't, Alex, are you prepared for? Could you do something like that? And technically, I'm just saying technically.
I can certainly try to whip something up for this group, yes.
Boy, if I had that confidence at 22, I'd be a billionaire right now. I think good things are going to happen to you, Alex. Very good things. I mean, good things have happened to you. Oh, by the way, list out the different things that you have won so far.
Well, I guess I can start with the Symphony Foundation. So I was the first place winner in 2023 and the second place winner this past year. So I will be on two of the Symphony Foundation's albums. I also was the youngest winner in the 2024 Rusakova Composing Competition, which is located in London. And I wrote a piece for two violins and harpsichord that was placed on an album there. One of the movements of that work actually was added to Apple Music's classical AM playlist and currently has over 50,000 plays worldwide. So that's been um, a pretty incredible accomplishment, but it's also, I mean, the whole album, I would say that my success, it's not just me, it's all of the albums together. And I think all three of the albums I'm on just have incredible works. And I think I dedicate a lot of my success to that. To date, I have 10 international composing competition wins. Um, but I also compose a lot for smaller ensembles around the country and around the
Did you
world.
say 10?
10.
Say that sentence again.
I have 10 international composing competition wins to date.
Wow. We can't wait for a cowbell. Let's give him a cowbell for that and a round of applause. That's awesome.
I
Wow.
appreciate it. But most of my success, where I think of the prizes, is my work with smaller ensembles. I do a lot of work for churches and high schools. They're ensembles that generally don't have a lot of new music that's written for them. So that's where I step in and I like to write it for free just to eliminate that financial constraint for a lot of them and just sort of give them the joy of new music that a lot of more professional ensembles get pretty regularly.
Wow. Amazing. That's incredible. So, Alex, what we'll do is we're going to have a kind of a commercial break here for a moment, and then we're going to come back to you. So, if you could prepare your technical stuff over there. So, right now, this portion of the mastermind, I'm going to cover something called character counts. In earlier days of team, it was given a different name. It was called Vice Watch. And I just learned something today, which is so incredible to me, just in terms of character. And I learned it about Christopher Scott Carter. So years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, we started. Someone
Back
had,
in the 1600s.
yeah, we put together like some. I forget who did, but someone actually volunteered and put together a spreadsheet that we could use, and where we could actually score and put together our numbers on Vice Watch. Well, what are numbers on Vice Watch? Well, it's now called character counts. And what it is, it's just a simple but very effective. In fact, Scott, what I learned today is that Scott still every Friday fills out his character counts spreadsheet. And no one has been asking anyone to do it, over the last couple of years. Scott, why don't you explain it? What is character counts, the spreadsheet? How does it work?
Okay. Well, it's basically for me, it just works as a weekly self check-in. How am I like, am I in control of my life? Am I meeting my most important values, or is life kind of running me around? So it's a self checkout, and I just score myself on in different categories based on whatever I feel like I need to rate. I'm cheating actually. So like, did I educate myself on my DAW this week? Did I educate myself on music? Am I neglecting something in my house? Am I helping my kids focus? Am I cursing? Etc. Am I overeating? So
Well,
like,
yeah.
all those kind of things. Because if those kind of actions can start to really bog down a person. Then all of a sudden, oh wow, gee, I wonder why my music isn't happening in the world. Well, I'm all being, I'm kind of settling for less over here. So it's a very non-judgmental self-check. Just how am I doing this week? And I just take a look at it. Takes me about 5 minutes a week, and I move on and I just take a look. Yeah,
Awesome.
five
Yeah,
minutes a
that's
week really.
incredible.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I didn't realize, Scott, that you were doing that every week still. So, and that's, I mean, you deserve a cowbell for that one. Let's give it
it's
up for
all about,
Scott.
yeah. I mean, like I'm either doing it or I'm not doing it. If I can't have to it. I'll just not do it. So
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, this is how I operate. Thank you
yeah,
for the cowbell.
that's great. Yeah, let's give it up for Scott on that one for sure. And just so all of you know, what I'm going to be doing is, and I'm kind of going through a new chapter right here. I just recently moved from Lake Forest, California, which is right near Laguna Beach. It's in Orange County, if you know the area. And I moved 25 miles north of Hollywood, 25 minutes north of Hollywood. It's actually only like 13 miles, but it takes 25 minutes. That's how the traffic goes around here. And it's up in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains. It's a beautiful place. And it's put me back into like one of the reasons I moved here was to be closer to Hollywood because I lived and worked in Hollywood for 20 years. And I've been spending a lot more time in Hollywood getting both music and film contacts as of recent. And some of those are old contacts I had, and some are new. And for me personally, it's like I love being near the mecca of the entertainment industry here. And there is a magic here. It's still here. And like, for instance, David Fogel and I had lunch, I think 3 weeks ago now, something like that, with the head of licensing international for Disney and 20th Century Fox. And, that's just something you can't do unless you're close enough, I mean, you could fly, and for instance, Scott Carter himself is going to be flying out here on the 26th, by the way. We're going to be filming his next, his music video coming up. So that's going to be very, very exciting. We're going to be having that service available for anyone who would like to fly into Hollywood to have your music videos done. Team will be doing that with Eric Hassenfang and myself with the new film production company. But my earlier point was, and by the way, I mean, David made a point to actually drive from San Diego for that meeting, which just shows his dedication, and it was more than worth it. Because what happened at that meeting was, and now getting back to Alex for a minute, was Alex came up as part of that conversation, and now there are things that I can't talk about right now that are happening behind the scenes. So Alex, just so you know, on the stuff that you're doing, behind the scenes for Disney and 20th Century Fox, at this time we can't talk about it, but we can say that he's working with us and doing incredible work for us to move the ball forward to possibly having Disney working closely with the Symphonina Foundation. And David Lyman, the head of licensing for Disney, I was able to get him to actually become a judge this year on the Symphonina Foundation competition. So there's already some synergy going on there. And I'll tell you more about that later. Now, getting back to Scott and character counts. So just so you know, Scott, read off the few those items that you read, because I just wanted to kind of define what is character counts.
Okay. So for me, and it can be different for every person depending on how true to yourself you are. So I just made up a list: overeating, junk food, excessive phone time, not sleeping, lack of DAW education, music education, neglecting housing, excessive drinking, not following my gut, etc., not helping my kids. So yeah.
So we used to call it Vice Watch, and what that list is a list of your own personal vices, things that you're doing that are destructive, that are pulling you down. And the reason for it is this: is I found, especially from my mentor Chick Corea, who's won like 25. I think he won another one. David, didn't he win another one this year posthumously? He was
I
nominated.
think I think he didn't win it, but
Okay, but he was
give
nominated.
it to him. I mean,
Yeah.
what the heck? Just give it. That's fine.
Yeah, but he was nominated, which gives him 51 nominations and 25 Grammy Awards. And he was a mentor to me. And one of the things that came up to me was this whole thing about character. And so, what this character counts is, again, that used to be called Vice Watch, is you list out personally for you what you consider are the things that you would like to improve in your life. And it's just a personal self check. It's simple, like Scott says. And then you grade each one of those vices. So let's say, I mean, if you think about it right now on this planet, the things, especially the way our culture is with the internet and all this stuff, like there are things available that weren't available so much before, and they can contain things like gambling, and then there can be drugs, drinking, lying, cheating on your spouse, like porn, anything that personally for you that you would like to improve. And I keep such a list like that. Some of our team members keep lists like that. And it's just a great way to improve yourself. And the whole purpose for it is so that not just your music career, but that your life goes better. And what I notice is this, and this is kind of what I learned from Chick Corea. And if there's anything I'd like to share from him to you, would be this. If you're involved in vices in your life, there will be catastrophes connected to you. There will normally be accidents, illnesses, different things that'll come up. And many times they point to some vice or vices that are being partaken by an individual. Contrary to that, however, he said, if you work hard on improving those things and getting rid of those things on a consistent, regular basis, you'll find that you become a manufacturer of miracles. Instead of catastrophes happening to you and negative things happening to you, miracles will happen to you. And so I tried it, like after he taught me that, I worked very hard on trying to become a better person. And if I'm going to be sitting here talking about character counts, I better practice what I preach. And, we're not perfect human beings, but and no one in the industry that I know of talks about this. We talk about what to do. Oh, let me open up DAW and show you what to do so that your music career will just take off like crazy. And here, I'll show you how to do compression, and I'll show you sidechain compression, and I'll show you how to master. You can master music, but kind of none of it goes anywhere if you're not working on yourself first. And that's what I learned. And that's what I'd like to spread throughout the industry. And one thing, to be honest with you, that strikes me in a major way about Alexander Unseth, who represents for me like the new generation of Renaissance people, is the guy's character is golden. I mean, everything that you've done, the amount of work that you've done for David, for me, the volunteering, the help. I mean, look what you're doing for free. Look what he said about he does free compositions and goes to schools and churches. And is that what it was, Alexander? Schools and churches, yeah. And and here he is, like he can. Well, you'll hear what he does today, but that's golden character. So, Alex, just as a kind of this is going to be on a replay, Alex, and I just want you to say a few words in terms of your generation and how character affects you, and what's your viewpoint of how you just behave personally to yourself and others.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for people in my generation, which is Gen Z, it's very consumed by social media. And I mean, not to be a broken record, but it is true that social media conflates the type of reality that is actually existing around you. So there's a lot of insecurity in my generation, and I think it restricts people from taking risks or doing something that they may be uncomfortable with. And I think one of the great things about that I have found in the compositional world is I actually have found a lot of my success by doing things that are just kind of uncomfortable. And while at the time it seemed sort of like a foreign concept, now that I've done it enough, I realize that like that is what many other generations had done before me is they take those risks. That's the whole thing with being an entrepreneur is you're taking a risk. You don't know if success is guaranteed. And I think what my generation kind of struggles with is that ability to take a risk. You may fail, but you also can succeed really, really well. And if I had had that mindset of, oh, I might fail, I'm just not good enough, I certainly would not have entered the Symphony Foundation's composing competition in 2023, would not have done it in 2024, and certainly would not be here now. So I think the key for my generation, and perhaps it will sort to fix itself a little bit, is just taking those risks and being able to realize that like the glory and the reward that may come from a success well outweighs the type of failure that you may be considering.
Awesome. Words of wisdom from a 22-year-old. I appreciate that. Let's give it up for Alexander UNSETH. And that just gives me hope, and there's plenty of people out there, the Jordan Janasco, and she's also a young composer who was the first place. Like last year, Alexander won first place and Jordan won second. And this year, Jordan won first and Alex was second. And that was by a very, very thorough judging panel that David had put together. That's and David's also a scientist, and it was very, very thoroughly thought out, and it was a very fair contest. And so they kind of flip-flop last year and this year. But Jordan's also a young composer, and the more I find and discover young composers like yourself, Alex, and musicians, the more hope I have for the new generation. I think it's incredible. Like, I think your generation is going to do incredible things for the future. And you're, to me, a shining example of your generation. So now, speaking about generations, here's the next thing. We talk about character counts. I've been doing one-on-one mentoring and apprenticing and producing and stuff for Christopher Scott Carter for I don't know how long it's been now, Scott. How long has it been?
Since I was living in Greece in early 2021, I believe.
Yeah. Wow. So for 4 years. Yeah. And Scott has come along and to the point now where, have any of you ever watched that show, Kung Fu, where the master would go, if you can take the pebble from my hand, to the student? And Scott's pretty much at that point where he can kind of take the pebble from my hand. He's become a real protege. And we were talking about character counts, and he was talking about his family. And so at every one of the sessions that I've done with Scott, his son, Julian, has done a special presentation. And we're going to give a minute for Julian to do such a presentation to all of you, just so you can get into the world of Scott Carter and experience the fruits and of his labor on character counts. Because I think I want to talk for a moment. Again, to me, this isn't pushed enough in our industry. About you and your life and how you conduct yourself and how much of a difference that makes to what I call the glass ceiling. Whenever I'm not doing as well as I could be, it, for me personally, it always points back to something that I'm doing in my life that's not up to my standards ethically. And it creates a glass ceiling. So that's why we're talking about this a little today. I think it's very important. So Scott, just to give a real life example of the fruits that have come from your hard work with character counts, I want to share with everyone Julian Carter, which is Scott's 12-year-old son. And every time when Julian first came on Zoom, I think about a year ago, he was like, I would ask him for a closing statement. You know how I asked for closing statements? Because we started to kind of have a little rapport. He would just freeze up and his eyes would go wide open and he wouldn't say a word. And then over the last year, he's gotten so much confidence. And Scott and his wife have been doing homeschooling, but he does a special presentation every week for me. And I thought it was so cool that I'd like him to do that special presentation for the entire mastermind. So no pressure, Julian. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep my fruits alive right now.
Okay.
They're both in here at the
Oh, I
moment,
see.
but the other one, she won't get in front of the camera because it'll steal her soul. So,
That's
yes,
Naomi. Yeah. Naomi's a dancer and she's what, 8 years old?
she's 9 and
9?
she's a gymnast. Yeah.
We did see her feet going over in a cartwheel there behind you,
Yes,
though.
we did.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah.
week. She's still around.
All right. So
All right, I'm
Julian.
gonna let Julian take it away.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you sit, bud.
Hi, Julian.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Do you have a presentation for us today?
Yes. I
Okay.
have two things to show you.
All right. Let's check it
Any
out.
of you, If any of y'all have seen Iron Man or like all three of them, then you'll probably know it's coming up.
Cool.
This thing.
So Julian is a Lego expert, just so everyone knows. And check out this creation. So you want to explain what that is?
That is the Iron Man Hall of Armor.
Wow.
And there's some Iron Man stuff back there. Like
What?
2 Iron Man suits, the Iron Spider suit and Ultron.
That's awesome. What's
And
that?
Spider-Man.
What's that glass thing over to your left? What is that?
Yes. It's like referencing one of the Iron Man suits.
Very cool. All right, let's give it up for Julian Carter and his Iron Man presentation.
I have something else to show you.
Okay. Remember, this is the person who would freeze up when he was on camera a year ago and wouldn't say a word. You've come a long way, Julian.
For the second thing I have to show you, if any of y'all have seen Marvel, if any of y'all have seen the Marvel Studios TV shows, then you'll know what's coming up.
And what is this?
It's a scene where they're all for like avenging to like defeat a bad guy. That's not here.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's Wolverine,
Uh-huh.
Moon Knight, the white guy, Hawkeye, and then Kate Bishop.
Wow. Not to be confused with Kate Bush. Okay. Oh, and a dog. There's a dog in there too. What's that?
You can tell them apart.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Once again, let's give it up for Mr. Julian Carter. And then Julian, why don't you give us your own closing statement? Because we'll be going and talking to your father and to other members here of the mastermind. So what's your closing statement today, Julian, for us? He's getting a coaching there from father.
What? I'm whispering something in your ear. Okay, fine.
I'm probably gonna show more stuff in the future and like make more cool stuff.
Well, that's awesome. And I think that you and your sister and your father and your mother are a great family. And let's give it up for Julian Carter, Scott, Cloud, and his sister Naomi. Woo! Give him a cowbell.
Thanks, Gary. Say thank
very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great job. I would have never done that when I was 12. I'll tell you that much. So this is just, I just wanted to share this moments with you because for me, it's like when this happens while I'm mentoring Scott and I see how he is working on his character counts, I just encourage all of you to really do a little soul searching and do whatever you can to improve how you treat yourself and others. And your music career, I have seen it happen so many times to myself and others. We'll have a boost. Something good will happen, or some things good will happen. Breaks will happen. Miracles will happen, and it all comes from how you treat yourself and others. And that's my belief, and it's something that I've seen to prove out. And so that's what I wanted to present to you today. Okay.
Thanks,
All right.
Gary. And Steve Dockendorf did have his hand up earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. Steve.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to add very quickly a couple of nuances. There's a negative scale, like, for instance, making people wait is one of the things that I'm really working on. And if I do
So
really bad,
this is for your character counts, you mean, right?
oh yeah, for my character counts, yes. This is not my closing statement.
Okay.
The point can, like, if there's 5 times I made people wait, I'll put -5. And I'm trying to get it up to 0 for all the different points. And then there's a positive side of the scale where if I help somebody with that point, that goes into the positive range. So That's another aspect of it. And just to get some more insight onto what to put on the list, I have a question for you, Gary. Is there still a TuneCore article on this?
Yes.
There was at one time. I just want to make sure because the last thing,
and we have it. We have it in our blog series, I believe now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So last thing, there's an author named John Maxwell who writes a lot on the subject of leadership, and in one of his books, he says to take all the things that you don't like about other people and see if you're doing those things and work on eliminating them from your life. So if you're in a question about what to put, and the TuneCore article gives some suggestions, but there's another added way to find things, which is to take things that irritate you about other people and make sure that you're not doing those also.
Words of wisdom. Give yourself a cowbell, Steve.
All right.
All right. And with that, let's turn to Alexander Unseth. And Alex, what magical musical moments do you have in store for us today?
So I'm going to talk a little bit about harmony because I think it's something that is applicable to any form of music. And I find that it's kind of the thing that a lot of composers struggle with is they may have a really good melody, but they're just not sure what to put in terms of the accompaniment behind it. So I'm going to showcase a little bit. It's sort of like a sneak preview. It's going to be an excerpt from my upcoming Symphonina, and I'm going to showcase just a little bit of this concept of a drone. So to start out, if you are sort of lost on how to figure out what kind of harmony to put behind it, my biggest recommendation is to have a sort of drone. So just have a constant note that you can put under it because it helps you to experiment with a lot of different harmonies. It may help you to find notes that exist within that key anyway, or try something a little more experimental. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to play a little excerpt of.
And then you know to click on share sound on that.
Yes.
When you
Let me make sure I did.
Screen. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So this is the second movement from my Symphony number 2, and I'm going to play it to showcase where here the double bass is playing a drone B flat, and all around it I'm going to play the moving line, which consists first of the first violins, first horn, and then flute. And then from there, there's going to be a sort of brass chorale that comes in. And you'll sort of see that even with a drone B flat, you can experiment with all of these different harmonies and moving lines, and it actually comes together and stays pretty coherent. So here is that little excerpt. How was the volume on that? I can't tell on other people's ends.
For me, it could come up a bit.
Okay, let me up the master. Okay, let's try this.
That's better.
So that's just sort of an example of how just by keeping a drone B flat all throughout this, you can actually put in some things that may not necessarily be a part of that scale, but they still come together quite well. For example, right here, this is actually, this is a D major chord. But even with putting a D major chord on a B flat, where that A might sound a little dissonant, it actually is an advantage to you because it acts as sort of like a stress and release. So I'll play that just again so you can hear that sort of stress and then release back from the D major to E flat major. So that sort of technique, just experimenting with things that may not be a part of that scale, but just trying to experiment with harmony. And then I will show another something on the spot. Since Gary requested that I do something on the spot, I will do a little something on the spot for you all, showcasing that in real time. So I've just pulled up a string quintet or a string orchestra. It is pretty easy since to have a drone, it's actually something that a string player can play, unlike a wind or a brass player where they would have to breathe. So I'm going to keep an E flat here, and then I'm going to mute these just so the residual sounds don't come in, but I'll play it later. So just keeping an E flat here. So obviously we could stay in the key of E flat and just keep it quite safe. We could do perhaps like E flat major, which would just be E flat, G, and B flat. We could have that sort of stay around, or we can experiment more with stuff that might be in the scale. So for example, we could start with an E flat major. So do E flat, G, and then B flat. And then we could maybe...
The violas are on a C clef. Do you want to explain what that is?
Sure. So this is an alto clef. It's a clef that's not really known in the orchestras because very few instruments play it. And by very few, I mean usually only the violas, which does not help the fact that they're always the butt of orchestral jokes. This really is a detriment to them again. But this is a clef. The way I read it is similar to the treble clef in that it's sort of just like one line down. So you can read it as what is a B flat on the treble clef right here. On the alto clef, it's just right below it. It's in the space below it. So that's usually how I read it as a composer.
Yeah. And show Alex how the clef itself kind of looks like a 3. See how it's like, maybe you could outline it with your...
Yeah,
it's like, it actually looks like 13 if you look at it, like 1,
yes,
3.
1, 3.
Right?
You are correct.
Now, in the middle of that 3, because some people will call the alto clef a C clef. And one way to learn it also is that in the middle of that 3 is the C.
Yes.
Right there. So it's also called a C clef. Yeah.
He is completely correct. So right where this aligns, right there, that is a C. So it sort of helps that it's right in the middle. Actually, it's kind of a beautiful clef in that way to where it's very symmetrical in that sense, sort of like a piano. It just is not used as much in orchestral settings. But within that realm, we can start on an E flat, and then we could go up to an A flat. So these two chords are well within the key of E flat major, because if we want to look at the actual key signature for it, which is 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. So A flat is a very common part of E flat major, rests very nicely. But we could also, I will actually play that for you all first so you can sort of hear how that sounds to an ear. Tempo. Okay. So it sounds very nice, but we could change it a little bit. So since we have a drone, we can make the next measure be perhaps a little more experimental, just to see where we can extend using this drone. So what if we wanted to do, again, another E flat major, but you wonder, what are the extents of this drone? What connects E flat major to other keys using just another E flat? What you can do is you can push this up a half step. So here you have an E major chord or an F flat major chord if you want to be consistent with the flat keys. And E flat major to E major is just a half step apart. And in regular time, it may not seem very coherent because E flat major is a flat key and E major is a sharp key. However, just by using a drone with the E flat you can make this into an E major 7 chord, which consists of E, G sharp, B, and D sharp. And D sharp in this case can also be E flat. So just by using that drone, I'm going to first play what this would sound like just by itself, E flat major to E major. There's not a lot of coherence to it, but by putting in a drone with that E flat, you can actually connect the two harmonies together with that drone note. So let me play that for you. So as you could
Very
probably hear there,
emotional. It's got a
yes.
lot of emotion in it. Play that again. That was cool.
So to Gary's point, it sounds a lot more emotional, and the way that you can make that even more emotional now that you have this sort of harmonic structure is now you can start playing with articulation, dynamics, ornaments, things like that. So for example, if we really wanted to hone in on the fact that this is an emotional moment harmonically, you can have a crescendi and diminuendi. So this goes towards that stress moment where E flat major to E major normally would not sound coherent. We've created that coherence simply using the drone. So back to my original point of experimenting with harmony, just using a drone. So let me play this for you.
I can see so many scenes from movies as I'm listening to that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It is very cinematic. And you actually will hear this a lot in a lot of film scores where they keep this sort of long note playing in the background. It helps to
drone
create a
itself.
sense of environment. Yes, the
Yeah.
drone itself. You hear it a lot in film score movies, especially in scenes that perhaps are more emotional, more angry, more sad. You will hear that drone because it helps to create this consistent vibe within your piece. And you can experiment a lot with harmony. Even
Very
with
cool.
this E flat, we could go back to, say, I'll just do one more. Piece.
And while you're doing that, Alex, Larry Piazza asked, what notation software are you using?
Yeah, so this is MuseScore. It's not quite a DAW in the conventional sense. This is an actual notation software. So you create the sheet music as it happens, so to speak. But this is my software of choice. I actually taught myself how to compose back in the early days of MuseScore, MuseScore 1, which is certainly a coarse fossil, so to speak, now. But if you like actually putting in the notes and seeing the sheet music in front of you, I highly recommend this. You can also do something like Sibelius or Note Performer. Those all sort of have that same notation vibe to it. So now for my last point, I will show actually two drones happening. So as you can see here, the violin 2 is playing again, but what if I just want one instrument to create the tension? So I have the cello playing just another drone. So now you have an F and an E flat. So the only thing that's going to be moving are the violas. And since they're the only thing moving, maybe I want it to have its own stress. So include the crescendi and diminuendi there. So for my final drone presentation, here is, I don't know what to call this, Dronia. Here is Dronia.
Wow. Wow.
So I hope that you can learn a little bit from that drone. And if you ever are in a notation software like this or experimenting at the piano or something, I highly recommend to use a drone because it helps you to understand the harmonies that may be staring you right in the face and you just don't understand it, or you just may not see it, just like any composer, including myself, does. It's a very good exercise in understanding how to experiment by creating that consistency for yourself. So I
That's
hope you
awesome.
enjoy. And
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
very much, as always, Gary.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Could you do me one thing for me? Is
Yes.
play it one more time and then play it a second time without the drone and then play it with the drone again.
Okay. So here it is with the drone. I will take out the drum. Here it is with the drone one more time.
Beautiful. That's incredible. And so I have a question for you, which I think I know the answer to,
Yes,
but I'm going to ask you so that I can hear your answer. You have perfect pitch, right?
correct.
And when you are composing, like this little piece right here that you were doing for us, as you're writing the music, can you hear it in your head? Which is a different ability altogether.
Yes. So I put everything on mute, and it was sort of twofold. One is so I don't have all of the sounds on your end, so you don't hear all of the individual things being put into MuseScore. But the other thing is I don't need to hear the notes to compose them. So for my perfect pitch, I think part of the reason why I was able to teach myself so quickly is because I did not have to sit at a piano per se to write. I could sort of just sit here and experiment on my own. But I think even if you don't have perfect pitch, there's a lot of benefit to doing this kind of exercise because you learn how things sound. And even if you're not able to sort of, hear it without any sound, it helps in the real world, especially with improvisation. I mean, this is the thing that jazz musicians are really, really great at. They don't necessarily know how it's going to sound before they play it, but because they have experimented so much and they know these patterns, they simply know what works. So there is certainly an avenue for people who don't have perfect pitch to be really good at these patterns and just know what'll sound good. And this right here is a glaring pattern. You're creating a pattern for yourself with a drone. And so this is something that I will say time and time again. This is a really good exercise if you want to give yourself consistency and add more interesting harmonies to your songs and pieces.
That's amazing. And how much time do you have? I know that you have different things that you have to get to as well today. Do you have any additional time, Alex?
Yes, I have a few minutes depending on what you're going to ask of me.
So, if you could just stay in this program, and here's what I'd like to ask you, and show us maybe another technique. So, drone was one technique.
Mhm.
And is there another technique that you enjoy, using and talking about?
That is an interesting one. I would say to go back to the piece I first showed. I like having a lot of conversation in my music. Some would call it counterpoint, and it certainly is that. And I think conversation is another great word for it. So we could actually keep this exact same sort of thing. The whole point with conversation is to make your music more interesting. Instead of having just one line, as we have now, there's essentially one moving line, and it's shown in parallel sections with the viola and cello. But what if we were to add something to the first violins to create more lines and more motion within the music? So what we could do with this is we already have our harmony right here already. So we can build the first violin around that and add some movement. So if we wanted to create some movement in the first violins, we could do this.
So
So I'm just adding,
as you're writing
yes,
those notes in, are you hearing those notes in your head?
yes,
And are you hearing the harmony underneath?
yes,
And so that you were saying, that's incredible. So, and that you were saying was just from basically putting in your 10,000 hours and doing this and hearing the patterns as you make them over and over and over again. Is that right?
yes. And I started cello at the age of 5, and so there certainly was a musical foundation long before I started composing. And I found out while I was taking cello lessons that I had perfect pitch because it's not something that you innately know you have. And I could just tell because I could tell within my own playing that, it sounded a little flat, it sounded a little sharp compared to my teacher, which is not something that when you start at the age of 7 or 8, you're necessarily able to tell. And so from there, when I started composition at the age of 17, that is when I started to figure out more that I had it.
Interesting.
So I'm just adding in a lot of notes.
And you're hearing that melody in your head.
Yes.
And are there any exercises that you know of that someone could do? I mean, I know of several where you could actually help speed along that ability to hear notes that you're writing without playing them.
Yes. So if you don't have perfect pitch, but you're a good musician, you more than likely have very good relative pitch, and that can certainly be trained. I myself can't.
I was going to
Like,
say, yeah, relative pitch is where
yes,
someone gives you the first note and then you can hear from that point
correct.
forward. Yeah.
And I mean, they do a lot of training in that. I know, like a college or high school program in the music theory sense, you do sort of just have to drill it into your head because it is just pattern recognition. I mean, my perfect pitch, I sort of just essentially have the note already inside me in my brain. And so I can just pull it out if I hear it. But again, more of just the same type of pattern recognition topic. So I know there are tons of resources online. I would say that YouTube is certainly a friend in this regard because they have tons of things. If you are looking to hone in on your relative pitch and make it better, there are more than enough resources out there, especially in the music theory world. So I would recommend searching online for sure.
You could go to YouTube and just simply put in ear training and
Absolutely.
and there's some great things. I agree, Alex. Yeah.
Yes. So I've just added in a violin line. I'm going to create something a little interesting. I'm going to stagger the dynamic contrast. I could very well put it in line with this, but if I'm trying to create some motion, I really want things to be different. And the worst case scenario is it just doesn't sound good. And I feel like once you realize that that is the worst case scenario, it's actually not that terrible. You can experiment a lot with your own music and harmony and the melody just by knowing that if it doesn't sound the way you want it to, keep experimenting and keep playing around. So I don't know totally how this will sound with the dynamics, but we are about to find out. So here's the drone, and we've got the violin ones on top of it.
That's unbelievable. That's incredible. Let's give it up for Alexander Unseth.
Thank you. Thank you.
Play
More
that
than
again.
appreciated.
Play that again,
Okay.
Alex.
Actually, I'm going to play it. I'm going to transpose it. This is something that I really love to do with my own music. Transposition, by doing it to a different key, it really unlocks something totally different within your own music. So I'm going to play it transposed up a half step.
Nice. Put it back to the other key and play that again. I'm so glad that you did that, Alex. And there's a comment that I'd like to make in a moment. Is it easy in that software to do this, to take that piece right there, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures, and then copy and paste it right after itself, and then have the second part go up the half step so you can just play it through?
Oh, yes, yes.
Good.
Do you want it right after it, or do you want like 2 beats of rest?
Whatever you feel would be good musically.
I would say just 2.
Okay.
Probably just keep it easy on the ear. So here are the 2 ones together.
And then the second one is up a half
Sorry.
step already?
Yes, that is up a half step. So this would be an E major.
Great. You know what I pictured? I just got chills, Alex, but I pictured a scene in a movie when I just heard that, where there was like maybe a young man meets a young woman at a dance or ball or something like that, and then she catches his eye, and then he starts to walk closer towards her, and it's like that emotional intensity builds. Just a beautiful
Yes.
piece right there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make a comment, Alex, and I'm sure you know this, but to everyone here and anyone that's watching this on a replay, which is Alex pointed out something really, really important in classical symphonic music. It's vital. It's true for any genre, but especially for symphonic music, because of the emotional impact and lushness of an orchestra and the sound of an orchestra. And that's this. When Bach was alive, he created something called the well-tempered clavier. And he set the tuning for keyboards, for pianos and harpsichords and organs and stuff at the time. Before that, to change from one key to another, the way pianos were tuned, they would have these sliding switches, and sometimes you couldn't go from one key to another and have things sound pleasing and aesthetic. So what Bach did, and you can study this online, he actually figured out mathematically how to stretch certain notes, a little sharp, a little flat, a little sharp, as you go from the low end of the keyboard to the top end of the keyboard, so that they would be physically pleasing to the human ear, and so that you could change keys. And what happens is when you go from one key, like this goes from what, E flat to E, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're going from E flat to E, literally the mathematical relationships between the notes change when you go to a different key. It's not the same math. So you'll get a different kind of tension, a different kind of release. It'll feel different because then, like, from the root to the third in E is not exactly the same as the root to the third in E flat. They're different. And so it's not just that it's going up higher or going down lower. The relationships of the notes are different. So the character and the personality and the emotion will change. And that's so cool, Alex, that you actually use that and experiment with that while you're composing.
Yes. And I mean, that is why I highly recommend it if you're trying to sort of hear what you're making in a different light. Because if it sounds good transposed, it sounds good overall. And so I think if you're just looking to change the color of it, and I'm someone, I'm colorblind, so my color comes into all the stuff I write. That's how I sort of perceive my own color.
You do you
And
mean
so this,
literally? Like you're literally colorblind?
I am red-green colorblind.
Oh, interesting. That's so
So,
interesting.
so the way that I see my color is through this music. And that's
Wow.
part of the reason why I think I love transposition, because it completely changes the color, as we were talking about, Gary, where it's just a completely different uh, sort of concept scientifically, and also just how it's perceived, to someone who has no idea about the science behind the frequencies or harmonics and so on.
Hmm.
It's just something very different. And I think we all can benefit sometimes from just, changing that perspective a little bit in our music.
Yeah. So, Alex, I have an observation that I've made as a composer myself when I started and as a mentor, and that's this is when people are writing this kind of music, and I love having you on the mastermind. One of the biggest reasons why I love it, Alex, is people, you're the kind of the most sought after guest that we've had. People constantly are asking me, can you get Alex on again? Can you? And for those of you that are here or watching this on a replay, you can see why. So, um, here's an observation I have, and I'd like you to speak to this from your point of view, Alex, from your opinion. And that is, people will say, I have a symphonina or a symphony, or I have an orchestral piece to play for you, Gary, and I'd like to get a critique on it. And the biggest common denominator critique that I find, again, I did the same thing, which is this: somebody will come up with maybe a really beautiful 8 bars or 4 bars, and then they just repeat it over and over and over and over again. And so the concept of developing isn't quite there. So, in order to save people time and to move you forward in your career without having to go through the trial and terror, as I call it, um, is Alex, what can you do to speak to how does someone develop something? I mean, you just showed a perfect example right there is by just taking the same thing instead of repeating it, you just bumped it up a half step, right? So, what other tools can someone use? And I call them, tools, not rules of development. What does development mean, and why is it important for a composer to develop something?
Yes, that is a fantastic question. And I think it's something that I struggled with in the beginning of my own compositional journey is how do you like, because you may have a really great idea, but if it's 4 or 8 measures, how do you expand that? How do you keep that sort of energy going with the rest of the development? And I think this is one of the reasons why I created something that I call a colorscape, and it's something that is featured on my website. And I've done a couple of colorscapes actually on a mastermind. The last mastermind I did, I took the theme of Jingle Bells and I sort of just tried to develop that theme in a way that exudes a lot of color. Because I think for a lot of composers, it's very difficult to see where their own music is going. And so I recommend one of two things, or both. You should envision what you're composing to be like a palette. You can have a bunch of disjointed ideas and then you can figure out how to combine them. Because I think a lot of people, they get a lot of tunnel vision and they say, no, I'm just going to write it like a book. I'm going to go word by word just until I make it till the end of the chapter. But sometimes you are better off starting maybe at the end and then going back to the beginning. I have done that with my past symphonina. I started with the third movement actually, and then I went 1, 2, 4. And even within the third movement, I knew where I wanted to start and end, and so I started there. And so by not putting yourself into a box early on, you can help developing your theme. And the other thing that I suggest is sort of to the cinematic point. If you can envision your own music like a movie, what type of movie are you putting it behind? And you can see that your music actually is like a bunch of characters. And just like how we don't like talking to someone who maybe just says the same thing over and over again, how can you make your own music like a character? And I think that is the key to development. And also just understanding how the greats wrote their stuff. I mean, there are greats within any genre. And I am sure that most, if not all of them, at some point struggled with that very concept of how do you develop something? And so look to their music, see how they transitioned between ideas. Because that, honestly, I think is the hardest part is transition. We can have really, really great ideas, but you don't know how to put them together. So focus on writing those ideas, and then create the transitions later, is my suggestion to everyone.
That's awesome. So, I can't help but think about uh, Leonard Bernstein's young people's concerts. When I hear you talk and when I see you demonstrate and teach, Alex, to me, you're the modern kind of maybe a sort of a protege of that approach, of Leonard Bernstein's young people's concerts. Have you watched those? I'm sure you're going to probably tell me yes, Alex. Have you ever seen any of those?
Yes, he actually was my inspiration for getting into music to begin with. So that is a massive compliment because I have tried to embody a lot of the fun and happiness that he created in his own music. And so, yes, he is top three for me for sure.
Awesome. Did you ever watch one of those episodes of the Leonard Bernstein's Young People's Concert series?
Yes. And I mean, he did a very good job in being able to communicate very large topics to very young audiences, which I think ties into the Symphony Foundation as well. I mean, you're trying to spread the joy of symphonic music to young audiences around the world. And I think myself as a young audience, this is something that I think could change the trajectory of classical music as we know it. If you can get a younger audience interested in something like a Leonard Bernstein Young People's Concert Series, I think that would certainly shape the generational impact of classical music.
Yes. Well, that was your interview and you're hired. How's that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying for.
No, that's awesome. So, describe, because I would like people as homework here for all of you here, because this is for you. We've brought Alex aboard here. We have David as a resource, the Symphonina Foundation, myself, team. It's all designed to help you move forward in your career and to hopefully give you a boost so that you don't take as long and you can get some wins and successes and you have a community of people to help support you. So, Alex, describe, because here's the homework I want to give everyone, Alex, is to just go online on YouTube and look up Leonard Bernstein Young People's Concerts. And why don't you describe what he did, who Leonard Bernstein was, and what was he doing for these Young People's Concert series?
Yes. So Leonard Bernstein was a conductor. Most prominently, he conducted for the New York Philharmonic. And he was simply a tour de force. He was more than a conductor. He also was a composer. He was a performer, and he was a speaker. So he started these Young People's Concert Series to take these young audiences and get them interested in types of music that maybe they would just not listen to. I'm not totally sure, but he had done pieces by Stravinsky and Copland, and these are pieces that are a little more mature, more for classical audiences that perhaps can understand more of the nuance behind it. But he explained it in such a way that these young audiences were able to attach themselves to the music. Because I think when people don't like a piece of music, I think it's simply because they can't envision or feel themselves attaching to it. So if you have someone like this conductor who goes up on stage and explains how you as an audience member can actually fit into the music, it was very impactful. And this is how you shape the next generation of music. You can't expect to throw a lot of music at a new generation and say, well, I hope you like it, figure it out. And he completely turned the tables on that by saying, I'm actually going to walk with you and explain to you how this music can relate to you and how you even can be someone who writes your own music or performs music or conducts it. And he did an incredible job at that. I know that went on for quite some time.
That's incredible. Alex, you just inspired me. You just inspired an idea. I think I'm going to seriously take the replay of this mastermind and send it along to the head of licensing over at Disney and 20th Century Fox, because this is exactly one of the things that we would like to be doing along with Disney and 20th Century Fox, that I've been working with for years. And they, the very cool thing was David Lyman, who is the head of licensing international. David Fogel and I had lunch with him, several weeks ago, and he, as I said, was a judge. He wants to be a judge again next year for the Sinfonina contest. He knows about Alex, and he knows a lot more about Alex now. But that's the kind of thing that we would love to do to help put that into the new generation, Alex.
Yes, and I mean that is part of the reason why, to go back to my original point, that's why I write a lot of pieces for churches or high schools. These are the kinds of places where the musical foundation is set for a lot of people, and I think the way that you inspire new generations of musicians is by walking right alongside them. And I of course would love to be a spokesperson for that cause and any other cause because I just love music that much, and I think everyone else should have the same level of appreciation that I do within that.
Yes, and I'll add to your bio one point, which is, as the excuse me, as the CEO and co-founder of the Sinfonita Foundation, David Fogel officially appointed you as an ambassador to the Sinfonita Foundation, and I think you're already doing an incredible job.
I appreciate it, Gary.
Yeah. So, no, this is incredible. Could you play this piece one more time? I just got chills from this thing.
Yes, I will play it.
Let's give it up for Mr. Alexander Unseth. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, and you could stop sharing for a moment. Yeah, there you go. So, just quickly, like to have any comments or questions. Larry, I would like to actually start with you because is Mary around? You can unmute your mic.
It would take me a minute or two to get her.
Oh, so I just wondered if she was around for this. But did you have any comments or questions? I'm counting on Larry here first because his wife Mary Feynman is an incredible composer. In fact, Alex, I would like some time to introduce you to each other. Mary Feynman is Larry's wife, and she's just an incredible composer. And she also does other genres like Broadway type musical genres and stuff like that. But one of the finest, I'd say, talents that I've discovered, on the order of your level, Alex. I think you guys would be great maybe to even collaborate someday. Larry, did you have any comments or questions?
Well, once again, I'm not the musician, so but I really appreciate it. It's funny, we use MuseScore a lot ourselves, and would love to learn more. Mary, of course, would love to collaborate with folks. Thank you.
Yeah. And do you have Alex, just on a technical question, what sample libraries are you using, and are they connected directly to MuseScore, and how does that work? Because it sounds nice.
Yeah, so MuseScore has their own libraries within Muse Hub, and so that comes with the software. You also have the opportunity within that to purchase other sound fonts. So that string sound font was actually part of what's called the Spitfire series, Spit and Fire, one word. And so I use that for their percussion and strings because I think it generally vibes well with different types of pieces, but all of those are available within the Muse Hub library when you get MuseScore.
Excellent. We have a question from David Paul Lord. You're muted, David. Do you have phantom power for your mic that's not on, maybe? Or you could put it into the chat. Yeah, for some reason we're not hearing that. Any other questions or comments from anyone for Alex? Steve Dockendorf.
Yes, I like your co-arrangement there of transposing and having that couple beats in between. And before you guys got into that, when I first heard the transposed version, I thought, that seems a little happier, a little brighter. And if I was composing this piece, I would develop the first section in the same key, and then to close the song, I would put the higher key one, or somehow in the middle, I'd work up to the higher key, and then that would be the ending of it. Anyway, so that's the way I look at it, based on the idea that a piece you're composing is a sort of a journey. You start the journey and you encounter various difficulties and struggles along the way. You resolve them and you have a happy ending. So that's the way I look at it. So that would be my just a beginning of what I would do with it.
Awesome. Great, Steve. Bridget.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for this session. Again, Alex, so inspired. I'm the Carleton College graduate, and I remember sharing that special connection with your parents. And it really encourages and inspires me to meet a person like yourself and to learn some more from you today. And I'm 62 now, and recently went through another death in my family. So it was very, very helpful to have music to focus on and to be able to take steps forward in my own music and keep on this journey. So thank you, Alex, Gary, everyone. This was very healing for me today. Thanks.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Bridget. I'm happy that we can bring that to you. Any other comments? Any other questions for Alex Unseth?
Could I actually say something to Bridget?
Yeah.
Because I think this speaks to something that is also close to my heart as well. I'm very sorry about the death. I mean, that is something that can't truly be conveyed in words. And I'm just very happy that I can be a part of that, even in a small way, because I think that there is something so powerful in the music world that really transcends words, and people are able, I mean, even on a computer, to come together and help with that. So I hope your journey is a peaceful one going forward. And I would be more than happy to write a piece of music specifically for you in this time. That would be my honor.
Wow. That's like, I'm getting some major goosebumps over here. That's incredible, Alex. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your generosity. Oh my gosh. Bless your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What better gift from one human being to another? I mean, wow. So,
I have
all
one
right.
question.
Did someone say something?
Yeah, I have one question. I find out I have a question to Alex. When he composes, I find out he's pretty rational when he does that, and he works is in his mind the way. Have you ever used your intuition to do that? Like, for example, like me, for about 35 years, to develop an idea, I trust a lot my intuition. And the rhythm is extremely important to develop the idea. And sometimes when you work intuitively without thinking about it, the development comes. It's like having an idea without thinking about it. And I find out you can actually compose things like for 35 minutes, and you're developing the idea, but it's just like you're trusting your intuition while you're working on your piano or guitar or even on the paper. It's like you're feeling deeply what you are hearing in your head. And actually, I don't have at all any perfect pitch or anything like that, but I really trust my intuition when I compose. And it's like an improvisation, but you're developing an idea through your improvisation. And this way, the development comes. And I find out you can compose like 60 minutes or whatever length of music just because you're so deeply connected to the music you're working on or whatever. It's like making everything in music, but a development what? Because I find out development in music is very important to speak, to tell a story, and also to emanate like all kinds of feeling you don't think about, and sometimes you're quite
That's
surprised.
Robert. That's very good. I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to cut you short for a minute because we have other people that want to ask questions
Uh,
too. But that's great. Alex, you want to take that up?
Yes, and it's sort of like the creative type of fever thing where you're sort of on that roll and you just, and that's why I highly recommend if you have an idea, just get it down because you can build off of that. And as long as you have the momentum going from it, try not to get too stuck in the weeds about how to tie them together. Put those ideas down and figure out how to tie them together later.
Awesome. And thank you for that, Robert. Great question. Kip.
Yes, thank you, Robert.
Did I hear you say you're getting into electronic medical records in Wisconsin? If so, expand on that.
Yeah, so it was not quite the path I saw with my business degree, but I was reached out to by a recruiter at Epic Systems. My degree will be in management, and so project management made the most sense. So a better term for it is I'll be an implementation specialist. So if there's a hospital or clinic or a nursing home that wants to implement the technology that Epic has created, I would sort of be the liaison between the company of Epic and then the user, in that case, whatever medical facility would be using it.
You know they're going to throw money at you. I
I
was in it.
know.
I was a developer in
That's
it.
why I'm
So
moving up to Wisconsin to work for them.
I was a system analyst in electronic medical records. So
Oh, wow. Look at that. Interesting. Very cool. So how many people here felt inspired and like they'd like to do more with symphonic music or orchestral music after experiencing the magic of Alexander Unseth? Yes, I certainly have. And Alex, I just wanted to bring you up to speed because I know you've been very busy behind the scenes, actually working with David on this upcoming album and on other things for us. So we're doing something called You Score the Scene. It's a new campaign where I'm working with filmmakers and I'm actually starting a film production company. And we're giving composers the actual footage to compose to rather than a written brief and a description of what's needed. And this week I spoke to a filmmaker. His name is Nicholas Rossi, and he's the person who has been apprenticing me for the last 2 years. I've been going up to New York in the fall for the last 2 years and working on films, short films, with this cinematographer slash director, Nicholas Rossi. And Alex, I told him about this idea, this campaign, where we're going to kind of change the approach, a revolutionary approach to briefs. And I have a list of 100 filmmakers right now with their resumes, their emails, their phone numbers. And we started contacting them this week. And I'm finding really good interest from the filmmakers. So, and I'll just give you an example. Nicholas, and this is just for all of you, Nicholas has a 14-minute short film. It's called 11211. You can find it on IMDb. You won't find any information about it much, but it's there. It's under Nicholas Rossi, 11211. Those numbers, that's the title of the film. And I told him about this idea, and I said, Nicholas, would you be interested as a filmmaker in supplying actual footage to us as briefs for anything you might need music for? And he goes, that's awesome. He goes, yes. In fact, I have a finished 14-minute film that I had hired a composer for, and the composer was great. And he started doing work for me, and it just wasn't clicking. And this film has been sitting there. He goes, you can go to IMDb. You're not going to find any information about it because it's kind of on the shelf right now. I'm looking for music for it. And he goes, yes, I'm interested. And so I've got now this ball rolling, Alex, where we've already had a few different, in fact, you know, the email that I sent to you, Alex, you can click on it later and check out one of the briefs and look at the footage of what I'm talking about. And it's something that's really exciting for us. And I wanted to segue that into, and by the way, Alex, do you have 5 more minutes or do you have to go now? Because I don't want to hold you back. We have 5 more minutes to go.
I have 5 minutes. And I saw the thing that was in your email, the YouTube link that had the clip and then had the music behind it. Is that what you're talking about?
No, that's the earlier one, but there's a new one where the actual footage is being presented. You can go back and check it out. It'll say something like click here to download the MP4 and audio files.
Right.
Yeah. And so we've been getting quite a few submissions from a lot of people here that you see and others from around the world. And I'm developing this idea and a campaign so that composers can actually have the footage in front of them. And here's what's cool about it to me. Bob Ballard, raise your hand, Bob. So he's also featured on this newsletter, Alex. Bob Ballard, and I put news flash from zero to hero. And I talked about Bob Ballard. And Bob started out, when I started this campaign, he goes, Gary, count me out. I'm not going to do this one. And I'm like, okay, that's where I'm not forcing anybody. And I said, can I ask you why? I'm just curious. Yeah, I tried to compose a film before. It just didn't go good. I'm not interested. I'm not doing it. And I'm sorry. And I said, no, you don't have to apologize. I don't ever force anyone to do anything. And in fact, my whole approach is tools, not rules. I just try to give you tools, not rules. And then you can use whatever tools you'd like. And Bob said, well, that's a tool I'm not going to use. And I said, okay. So evidently, quietly behind the scenes, when I sent out the footage, Bob downloaded it. He didn't tell me anything about it. And what happened? What happened then, Bob?
Well, I sent it in, and
But what happened when you downloaded it? So because you weren't going to do anything, so did you?
No, because that's why I'm so excited about your idea to do this, because I've been struggling with these briefs that are written, in English and not in a scene that I can really. So it's so difficult to write music for me that way. So when I saw it visually, somehow I was able to, like, the dam broke and I could see how my music could be fit into the film. So it was just like a whole nother world for me opened up that I, didn't know before.
Yeah, and so then you submitted, and now, so here's the cool thing. Even if you don't submit and you take the footage that we supply and you put music on it, and then I encourage you to, and I'm going to be teaching, this year how to mix films, how to mix the dialogue with your music and with Foley, like all the sound effects and stuff. How you put that together, and you end up with a show reel of your own. Even if you don't submit it back to us, you can use that as a show reel. And so Bob did that, Alex, and with it, he actually won a competition, and he's working with a award-winning director right now that he met with this past week. I'm putting together a trailer for a full-length documentary. And how did that meeting go, Bob, with the director?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it was really great. It's very exciting. I'm going to meet with them again next week, and me and two other composers are working on the trailers. We're all doing it, but independently. And then we're going to have a showing in LA in a couple of weeks.
So they're actually going to show it at a theater?
Yeah, they're going to show it at the
wow,
the Ronald Reagan Marionette Theater.
Wow. So you went from refusing to do this thing, the zero, to now the hero. You're going to have a piece of your music being actually premiered at a theater with an award-winning director.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. And that all comes about from two things. And this is one of the things I wanted to close out today's mastermind with. And they both are in the universe of Bob Ballard. So one is these video briefs, you score the scene. I encourage you to do it and use it as a show reel like Bob did. And we got like pretty much instant proof of concept on this thing. The second thing I just learned today, which was incredible, and that is that one of the partners of the new film production company that I'm working with, Eric Hassenfang, who's featured on this latest video brief, he introduced me back in January to Grant Cardone's book, 10X Rules. And so I told several people about it, and I encourage people, if you're going to check this out, which I encourage you to do, it's unbelievable, the audio book, because Grant Cardone himself, he does the recording, of the voiceover of the audio book. And the audio book is different than the book. Like in the audiobook, he'll say things like, the editors didn't let me say this, but let me tell you something. And he goes into detail. And so I started applying that. And one of the things, the concepts in the book is massive action. And killing fear by not delaying action, because he talks about fear has a fuel and it has a food, and that is time. And if you give fear time, it grows, and then you probably won't do what it is that you really need to do. So I started applying that. And one of the things I did, Eric and I went into massive action on putting together these video briefs. And I thought to myself, wow, and it worked. And Bob Ballard won this competition. And this is awesome. I got to tell Bob Ballard to read that book. And guess what I found out today? So, Bob, what happened to you behind the scenes?
Well, same thing. You shared the book with us, and I downloaded it or whatever. And
How long ago?
Probably a month ago.
So I had no idea that Bob was actually reading, the audiobook, right? Did you do that
right,
one?
the audiobook.
And you were actually applying some of it, weren't you?
Yes, I was, and that's how this came about too, was, that theory, that whole thing of massive action was just really amazing, because I found if I take action instead of thinking about taking action, it's way better. Things actually happen, and I end up with a different view of who I am in the process. So was really great, that I just, when there's something to do, I just do it. I don't try to figure it out. I just do it.
That's awesome. And there's a lot of nuanced other tools in that book, but that is one key component of it. So I encourage you all. Here's another, I'm not going to say homework because I'm not going to force you. Here's another tool, not a rule, for anyone who would like to partake in this wisdom, which I think is incredible. And that is to purchase the audiobook. Even if you don't like audiobooks, you go, no, I like to read. Get the audiobook on this one, because there are things in the audiobook that are not in the book. And it's called 10X Rules by Grant Cardone, and apply it to your life and to your music career. And I think proof of concept here is myself and Bob. I mean, together, and I didn't even know he was reading at the same time, we ended up with this whole proof of concept on these new briefs. So let's give it up for Mr. Bob Ballard. And even though, Bob, I usually give you the closing statements on these masterminds because it's time for us to end off, I'm going to have a double kind of duo closing statement. So the first closing statement is going to go to our featured guest, Mr. Alexander Unseth. So, Alex, let's get a closing statement from you regarding today's mastermind.
I'm always inspired at these meetings to create more of my own music, because there's a lot of power in seeing that so many people from all of these different backgrounds who have so much stuff going on in their life can for an hour and a half come together and just talk about music and listen to it. And I think there's something, it's kind of cliche, but I truly think that there's something so beautiful behind it, especially in a world that's constantly changing, where you can just hop on a Zoom call and I can compose something and I can hear from all of these incredible musicians in the world. It's just, to me, as a young composer, there is nothing more inspirational than that. And so I just want to thank Gary again for giving me the outlet to do this. I want to thank all of you for coming on and hearing me improvise on the spot. It's a little scary, but I know that this group of people, you all are just so accepting and so incredible. And so I just wish you all the best as always, and keep composing music, because the world always needs more of it.
Awesome. Let's give it up once again for our featured guest, Mr. Alexander Unseth. And the last closing statement, let's give it to Mr. Bob Ballard.
Thanks, Gary. It's so wonderful to be here again and to hear all these wonderful stories. And Alexander, I'm just amazed by what you do. So it's really great. I think, like Gary said, you're going to have an incredible life based on who you are and what you do. So I learn so much here every week, and it's really great to hear how other people are doing. It's really great to share how I'm doing, because that's another thing about just, massive action is it requires you to share yourself. And that's another thing that I resist. And so when that opportunity comes up, like when Gary says, "Hey, Bob, will you do the closing statement?" In the past, I would have been like, "Oh my God, no," but now it's like, I turned it into an opportunity because it's part of taking action. So thanks, Gary, for giving me that opportunity and to be part of this.
You're welcome. And let's give it up for Bob Ballard. And let's give some cowbells out. I think we should give cowbells to Bob, Alex, and David Fogel. And the very last thing I want to say to everyone is use this inspiration, use this moment, use this 90 minutes that we've shared together to inspire you through the week, to help push you. I have a word for life that I came up with, which is brutiful, because I think when I observe life, and I haven't seen anyone disagree with me yet, life is both brutal and beautiful. So it's brutiful. And we're here to help each other conquer the brutal and create the beautiful. And that's what we're here for. And so hopefully you took some of that away with you today. And I want you to go this week and create beautiful. Now, right before you go, everyone click on the chat. There is Alex's website. I put several times, but it's there in the chat because I want this inspiration from Alex to continue and follow you through your life. And you can constantly refer back to that. So go ahead and bookmark that. And again, thank you so much, Alex. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, David. And have a great week this week. So let's give it up for us. Let's give it up for team. Woo. Take care.